Let me tell you something. If you'd told me 5 years ago that I'd be standing in my own garage staring down three people in knockoff police uniforms before sunrise, I'd have laughed and offered you a cup of coffee. But there I was, just after 6 on a Tuesday morning, with a woman waving a plastic badge in my face, telling me veterans like you shouldn't have access to weapons. We're confiscating everything for neighborhood safety. I swear her badge caught the light like a kid's toy, not a bit of metal on it. If you'd ever seen a real badge, you'd know the difference in a heartbeat. And the three of them standing there, hands hovering over what turned out to be airsoft guns, looked more like they were on their way to a Halloween party than any kind of real law enforcement. But here's the part they didn't know: 12 years in Army Special Forces will teach you to spot a fraud at 100 yards, whether it's in a war zone or your own driveway. They also had no idea that I had a federal protocol I could kick off that had turned their little scare tactic into a federal conspiracy charge before they'd even had time to rehearse their next line. My name's Garrett Wolf. Just 3 weeks before all this, I'd moved into what I thought would be my peaceful retirement home in Willowbrook Estates, a so-called gated community about 40 minutes outside Atlanta. That morning, I'd been in my garage organizing my grandfather's World War II rifles. Every one of them legal, everyone registered and displayed like the heirlooms they are. The place smelled like gun oil and fresh coffee, which honestly just made me miss the better days before an IED in Afghanistan messed up my hearing and ended my military career for good. I wear a hearing aid now, a little reminder of what it cost me to get here. But the settlement from the VA let me buy this place outright, no mortgage, no worries, at least I thought. Now, if you've ever had someone try to strip your rights away using fake authority, you know exactly how my blood was boiling. Seriously, hit that like button if you know what it feels like to stand your ground and keep watching. Because what happened next, well, let's just say the show was just getting started. See, the house itself came to me in the strangest way. I didn't inherit it. 3 months earlier, I'd been scrolling through federal auction listings. Don't judge, it's a weird hobby when this 5-bedroom colonial popped up. The old owner, Harrison Blackwood, lost it in a bankruptcy, which turned out to be a bigger deal than I realized. I got into a bidding war with some developer, Meridian Holdings, and beat them by $1,000 at the last second. $4.7 million in cash thanks to my settlement. What I didn't know then was that Harrison was the brother of Conrad Blackwood, who ran a private security company and was married to Meredith Blackwood, the soon-to-be Nightmare in Heels and president of the HOA. Trouble started 3 days after I moved in. I was having a safe installed, one of those monsters you need a team to move, when a white Range Rover pulled up. Out steps Meredith, looking like she was assembled from a focus group on suburban authority. She's tall in heels, with that frozen face you get from too much Botox and not enough kindness. Pastel blazer hair like a helmet, and 2 minions with clipboards behind her. Mr. Wolf, she says, like the name tastes bad. I'm Meredith Blackwood, president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. We need to discuss your situation. That word situation told me where this was going. She handed me what she called a welcome packet, 73 pages of rules and restrictions, more than most prisons. No parties past 9, no parking in your own driveway overnight, no painting your mailbox or planting a flower without approval. But the section she bookmarked for me was about weapons. We maintain a family-friendly environment, she said, like she was doing me a favor. Certain elements can be disturbing to families with children. I explained as calmly as I could that I'm a veteran, everything's legal, all my paperwork's solid. But her face just got tighter. Veterans often struggle with reintegration, she said, and we've had issues before. She said PTSD like it was a dirty word. I looked her dead in the eye and told her she might want to reconsider saying things like that out loud. But she just smiled, tapped her clipboard, and told me they'd need to conduct regular safety inspections of my property. For the children, of course. Yeah, so that night I started digging like any good soldier in enemy territory. Couple hours on the county site and local Facebook group. And it was all right there. Meredith had run the HOA for 6 years. And in that time, 12 families, most of them veterans, had moved out under mysterious circumstances. The local Facebook group was filled with coded warnings and posts that vanished in hours. I found out the guy who used to own my house was being groomed to take over the HOA before he lost it. So by outbidding them, I'd screwed up years of planning. And from there, the harassment went nuclear. Within a week, I got 17 violation notices, one every morning delivered by a different board member like they were taking shifts. My grass was supposedly a quarter-inch too high, the flag in my garage aggressive patriotic display, the smell of gun oil threatening atmosphere, $9,000 in fines for stuff they made up. But that was just the warm-up. Next week, Conrad's security company started rolling by in black SUVs. Cameras, telephoto lenses sitting outside for hours, following me on my morning run, filming me mowing the lawn. And when I checked their company out, I found their license had been pulled 2 years ago. They just rebranded and kept going. Conrad himself had a record including assault charges and impersonating law enforcement. It was classic intimidation, but I wasn't the first target. I found 3 other vets who'd been forced out, one arrested on bogus charges, another after a house fire that looked like arson, and a third being pushed into a psych eval because he flew a flag and hosted BBQs. The playbook was always the same: fake violations, security surveillance, then a real law enforcement call based on manufactured evidence. Meredith would build a case on paper that looked legit, and eventually the veterans would break or leave cheap. But not me. That Tuesday started like any other. I was up early cleaning my grandfather's M1 Garand, letting the morning air in. Then I heard the engine's 3 black SUVs in formation outstep 3 cops. Only they weren't. Their uniforms were all wrong badges, too shiny, guns too fake. The leader introduced himself as Sergeant Troy Hutchinson, badge 789, which doesn't even match our county system. He tried flashing a fake warrant wrong judge name, bad signatures. I asked to verify his badge and precinct. The panic on his face said everything. His sidekick tried to escalate, hand trembling on his airsoft holster, threatening to arrest me for interfering with a lawful order. The third guy pretended to talk on a radio that was only static. They were actors, not criminals. Actors probably hired off Craigslist, now way out of their depth. So I pulled out my phone, made sure I was recording, and told them I'd be calling 911 to verify their authority. The looks on their faces priceless. I announced that I was calling the FBI field office too, given the federal nature of their crime. That's when the lead actor broke. Blackwood Securities hired us for a training exercise, he blurted. They said you were an actor too, this was all a drill. And that confession caught on my cameras was the final nail in their coffin. The sheriff's deputy who showed up, Rodriguez, clocked the fake uniforms in 2 seconds. He'd been in Iraq. He knew the real thing. The feds arrived minutes later, and as the actors got cuffed for real, I saw Meredith's white Range Rover idling down the block, her phone glued to her ear. She was probably trying to salvage her empire, not realizing every call and text was evidence now. The actors spilled everything: Craigslist ads, contracts, call sheets from Blackwood Security, emails, instructions, even suggested lines for the scenario. The FBI set up a mobile command center in my driveway. By that afternoon, Meredith's house was swarming with agents carrying out boxes of files, laptops, and her vision board for the neighborhood, which, get this, actually had red X's over the faces of every veteran family. If it weren't so evil, you'd think it was satire. What came next? The neighborhood finally woke up. An emergency HOA meeting was called. The place packed with angry neighbors and embarrassed board members. Dorothy Simmons, the vice president who'd been bullied by Meredith for years, stood up and owned her part in the silence. She led the charge to vote out every Blackwood crony and launch a forensic audit, which turned up that Meredith had been embezzling HOA funds to pay for the security company that harassed us. The investigation just kept growing. Feds uncovered connections to other HOAs, Other security firms, a national network targeting veterans for harassment and forced sales. It became Operation Homefront, a case that changed federal law. New legislation protected veterans from this kind of targeted abuse, and Willowbrook's own HOA became a model for others. Veterans committees, transparent audits, no private security for code enforcement, a Bill of Rights for all residents. The trial was a circus, national headlines, packed courtroom. Testimony from the actors, the other veterans, even kids whose parents had been forced out. FBI forensic accountants traced millions in profits back to the Blackwoods shell companies. They'd even funded anti-veteran campaigns, lobbying for restrictions on gun rights. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury took 4 hours to return guilty on all counts. Conrad got 12 years in federal prison, no parole. Meredith got 8, both banned for life from any authority role. Their property seized, funds redistributed to victims, and the house Meredith used for her plotting turned into transitional housing for homeless vets. The actors manipulated into committing crimes were offered redemption and became advocates. One even joined the FBI, inspired by the agents who'd busted the case wide open. As for me, the settlement from the civil case built the Wolf Foundation for veteran housing rights. We've helped hundreds of vets keep their homes, trained thousands more to spot and fight fake authority. I married Rebecca, the federal prosecutor who led the case. We had our first child last year right here in Willowbrook, surrounded by neighbors who actually care. 5 years on this neighborhood is nothing like it was veterans' makeup. Nearly a third of the residents' property values are up, and the HOA is about real community, not power trips. Sometimes Dorothy drops by for coffee and reminds me my grandfather would be proud not just of the rifles I maintained, but the rights I defended. So here's my question for you. If you'd been in my shoes that morning, would you have called the bluff right away or played along to gather more evidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you or someone you know ever tangled with an HOA or fake authority? Share your story. I want to hear it. If you believe in standing up for what's right, hit that like button, share this story. And let's make sure nobody else goes through what we did. Justice only works when good people refuse to back down. You know what I mean?